The last time you were on this podcast, I believe you had told us that there were negotiations for maybe Joe Buck going to ESPN for a Big Ten game going to Fox, which ended up happening and was true. The Big Ten now is the hot commodity in the sports broadcasting landscape. Negotiations are going on right now. I think it's probably, it's confusing for me, and I follow this stuff. For the average fan, it must be really confusing because you have the Big Ten network, and ESPN has a deal with the Big Ten, and Fox has a deal with the Big Ten, but there's still negotiations with the Big Ten. Where do we stand with everything? Do you know, and can you shed any light on how you think things will play out, what we should expect, what's going on with the Big Ten college football rights?
Listen, first, thanks to USC and UCLA. It's not your parents' Big Ten, and it just shows. A couple of years ago, I did a 3-part series for the New York Times with Steve Eater and Sandomir about the money in college football, and it really is. It's just crazy. And those were 2 pivotal moves that helped beef up the Big Ten standing. The confusion that you're alluding to, look, people have slices of these things and different kinds of arrangements. And you always knew, like with the NFL deal, NHL deal, sometimes it's going to be split. But the truth is that it's enormously complicated when you start to talk about how things are going to be divided. You can't just say, oh, by the way, we'll take, so many games and you'll take so many games if it's a 2-way split. The intricacies of, what Howard Katz does at the NFL and what those NFL TV contracts are, like how many NFL East games you get, how many games at the Super Bowl champion or whatever. That happens too at the college level. And this Big Ten deal is going to be a massive one. I think it's going to be a long-term one. And so right now, it's all about triage and what you're going to get guaranteed is your slice of the pie, and then ultimately how much you're going to pay for it. But they are guaranteed. We've been thinking about the Big Ten deal for years now, and the truth is they're guaranteed a really nice return.
Are CBS and NBC, are they players in this?
At some point, I think everybody was in, and then as the numbers start to go up and up and up, or people start to look at what's available, because you kind of know if ESPN and Fox have equity stakes or are part of the Big Ten, so to speak, there are certain things that they're just going to get that you're not going to get if you're NBC or CBS. And then at that point, at what point do you say, look, if that's all that's left over, I can't be spending that money.
Because CBS, obviously, they're losing the SEC to ESPN. Would CBS be out of the college football business, or they'll stay in it and maybe get a piece of, one of these other conferences? I know they have CBS Sports Network with the Mountain West, but what do you think happens with CBS?
They're desperately trying to stay relevant and try and have meaningful inventory. The problem is that the stuff going on, and it's big stuff going on at the parent company, the valuation of Paramount. I don't know if Tony Romo's deal would have been done now. I don't know if, we're talking about a significant decrease in the market cap. And so, I think that management at Paramount has a lot more things to worry about than whether or not CBS Sports is going to, have the kind of inventory that they have, that they used to have in college football.
That is an absolutely wild statement by you, that you don't know if the Romo deal gets done today, given the current climate at Paramount, because the Romo deal is what set every other domino in motion in terms of Aikman and Buck and Michaels and Herbstreit and Tom Brady, ultimately.
Absolutely. It had such deep repercussions. And by the way, it's north of $100 million. So we're talking about, a significant outlay of money. And if you were a Viacom or Paramount shareholder now, if they did that deal today, I think there'd be pitchforks at the next meeting, because it's like, wait a second, hold on. We start with the premise that most studies say there's really not a vast disparity between ratings if there's one person announcing or not. I mean, it's nice to have that patina and that, that level of, of expertise, but I think shareholders would be furious if that was happening now in this client. And you're right. I mean, just think about, all the other deals that happened as a result of that.
Yeah. I ask everyone who comes on, I haven't asked you yet because you haven't been on since it happened. How do you, when and if he ever retires, how do you think Brady will do in the booth? And as just to note, Fox is not giving Brady all that money just to call games. He's going to be a Fox spokesperson, basically. But let's just focus on the booth and calling the games. How do you think it goes for Tom Brady?
Well, so let's start with the importance of your question, because there are no guarantees, and no one is super smart at. I mean, so what? Your tight end, Jason Witten. I mean, Dallas Cowboys tight end. You're telegenic, and all these meetings that you have, and it's going to be great. And Drew Brees. I mean, how dynamic is he? And whatever. It's interesting to go back to Romo. Nobody was saying that when Tony Romo was signed that he was going to be a game changer in terms of what was going on in the booth to the degree that he has been. So I think that your question alone is a profound one, because as William Goldman once said about the movies, nobody knows nothing. And so it's very hard to predict. I believe Brady is going to be entertaining in the booth. I think he's got a wicked, sardonic, wry sense of humor. I think he never shies away from kind of like talking trash or being outspoken. So, one of the things that if you go back to when all this started, like when Billie Jean King started being an analyst for HBO and Wimbledon in the 80s, it was a hard thing for her to even say anything negative, because these women on the court were, her peers or proteges or, just the family club, so to speak, of professional athletes. And it was a learning curve for her, which she's been very outspoken about and very candid about. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Brady. And I think that one of the things that we know about Brady, I mean, that Facebook, I mean, my God, that was incredible, the numbers. People are still very much intrigued by this guy. He's a Pied Piper on many different ways in terms of like fashion and culture and blah, 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 blah. So I have a feeling, look, he may have a learning curve, but I have a feeling that Fox News is going to be pretty good with him.